Listeners, I am currently on break, so I can focus on my writing and some much needed rest. Until I return with new episodes on September 17th, I've curated a summer rewind series of fan favorites. If you're new to the show, this is a great way to get started. And if you've been here for a while, these episodes include gems you'll want to hear again. This week's episode is with Courtney Maum. It includes a gold mine of writing advice and Substack wisdom you will not want to miss. So grab your pen and prepare to take copious notes. Also, Courtney is currently on tour supporting her latest book, Alan Opts Out. And one way you can pay back her generous wisdom is to buy a copy of her book, which you can find in the show notes. All right, let's get started with this week's show. Welcome to Writing Resilience, the podcast for writers who want to write and live the story that sets them free. I'm your host, Lisa Cooper Ellison, a writer, transformational and trauma-informed coach, story alchemist, and fellow traveler on the winding road of healing and creativity. Each week, I'll share tools, practices, and conversations that will help you let go of what no longer serves you as you create stories that change lives, especially your own. Together, we'll explore how to trust your creative voice, support your mental health and resilience, work with your nervous system and unique design, and stay connected to your deepest calling as a writer, even when life gets messy. It's time, my friends, to write and live the story that sets you free. I'm honored to walk that journey alongside you, one story and one episode at a time. Welcome, Courtney. I am so glad to have you on the podcast today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I have been a huge fan for quite a while. I follow your Substack. I have a copy of your book here, but this is just one of the many books that you have written. You have written fiction, you have written memoir. This is, your signature book that also goes with your Substack. What would you like us to know about you as an author and all of the work that you've done?
Oh, well, thank you so much for that lovely and generous introduction. I guess to put things into context, it might be important for listeners to know that I'm someone who does hop around a lot in genres. Not only do I sort of embrace all genres, I have done literary fiction, experimental historical fiction, reported nonfiction, hybrid memoir, but also chapbooks. I've self-published. I tried thriller. I'm not good at it. I definitely want to try erotica. I'm very excited about not just all genres, but I really am a big believer in storytelling in all formats. And so for my own students and writing clients, I really like to tell them, I completely understand the drive and the attraction toward the traditional path, right? In America, that would be agent, book deal. Absolutely understand that. My ego was drawn to that as well. But one good thing about social media and digital media is we have so many channels open to us as storytellers these days. You can have a one woman or one person show, a little stand up, a one night play. It can be YouTube. It can be a little series, a web series on Instagram. And then it could still eventually be a book, but I definitely think it would be important to couch this discussion in a value that's very important to me, which is that you can and will get your story out to the world and find your readers. It's probably healthy to embrace or just respect alternative paths to getting there. And I would also add that for me, mental health is something, especially now. I struggled with severe depression myself about 7 or 6 years ago. And it's basically all I think about now. And it's what I write about in my Substack, how to pretty much prioritize, put the mental health piece first. And in order to do that, whether it's in my classes or I run a destination writing workshop called Turning Points, my approach is always, we must help the writer first before we can help the writer's writing. And I don't think that that's been the traditional approach. I've been very frustrated as both a student and a teacher of the traditional writing workshops in the past, where it's your day to workshop and everyone's read 15 pages that are probably your best 15 pages because
Mm-hmm.
most people want to put their best foot forward and impress the teacher. But then what are the students there for? They're not there to give you compliments for 45 minutes, right? They're there to
Right.
tear it up. So you come in maybe feeling pretty good, you leave shattered. Usually most people feel
Mm-hmm.
kind of shattered. And how the hell has that helped anybody? Let's
Exactly.
say that you're beautiful on the line, but you have absolutely no accountability, no time management, petrified of speaking in public, don't know how to pitch essays, right? Unfortunately, we are in a world where beautiful writing talent on the line level is not really going to get you there
Yeah.
in North America. So I mean, I work with all kinds of writers, people who are super excited to self-publish, the people who want the $1 million book deal, the people who want the micro press. But we always start from what are your challenges, as a person? Is it
Yes.
hard for you to get to the desk? What's your financial life like?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're coming into this because you need money from a book deal, you must immediately go and find another income source. You can't put that
Yes.
kind of pressure on yourself until you have repeatedly earned book deals, right?
Yes.
Once you start, I would say, if you have 2 books or more, you can start thinking, huh, okay, maybe I can quit my day job. But I totally support, arranging your finances to try to take a year to work on a book, but you you shouldn't be writing toward some amount of money that you think is going to fix your finances. So I think generally across the board with my work and my Substack, I like to really tackle these taboos, which are talking about the writer first and not the writing,
Yes.
not hiding behind this curtain where the writing is all that matters. The writing didn't come out of nowhere. It came from this person sitting in front of you who has wants and needs and fears. And then I talk a lot about socioeconomics because it's just one of the cruelest things you can do with artists is not talk about finances, I think. So
Right.
yeah, I think those
Absolutely.
are kind of the big picture value takeaways with me.
And I love that you shared all of that because I share those values. I
Um,
think one of the things that Athena Dixon, who is a friend of mine, I love Athena and all of her work. And she talks a lot about how we need to really think about what is success for you.
yeah.
And it's going to look different for different people. And I always say, take care of yourself first because as you know, and I think a lot of memoirists especially find out later on, though this can happen in fiction. I had a couple of fiction writers tell me this, is that everything, you know, a lot of people will bank on the publication being the thing that makes them worthy or the thing that brings them money or
Yeah.
the thing that brings them whatever it is that's lacking in life. And then it happens, and either
Yeah.
they don't get the success that they imagined, or there are responses that don't feel great, or
Yeah.
just the fact that they have exposed themselves in a way
Oh, yeah.
that they didn't anticipate they would, feel bad about.
Or
Suddenly they're
it's too
having,
successful and they have no more
yes,
time to actually write, which is what they went
right.
into the whole thing for.
Exactly. So you can have all of these other experiences. So if you're not taking care of yourself throughout the process, it's not going to bring you the success internally that you want. And that's what I think is more important is like, how do you feel inside about your work? How settled is it?
This is such an important topic, and it's really one of the reasons I wrote before and after the book deal,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have a professional background in creative writing. I don't have an MFA. I did go to college, but I studied comparative literature and translation. I did not start participating in workshops until I was 30 years old. I didn't do I
Mm-hmm.
had a summer of workshops where I did 3 in a row, and then I did not like the traditional workshop method. So I
Yes.
stopped. I took online writing classes and whatnot, but don't come from some formal MFA background. And so my first book deal, I was I was living in Europe. I mean, it felt I had no writer friends. When it happened, I had nobody to show me the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed my agent and publisher would show me the ropes, and I love them. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but it was certainly with my first book, and even more with the second, where I thought, oh my God, it's not just me. Nobody gets a user manual. And
Right.
we need a user manual because I'm now entering a job that I trained for on the line level. And luckily, I've worked as a copywriter, so editing and writing succinctly, things like that, I have thankfully learned. But
Hmm.
the PR, the etiquette, the things you're just supposed to know that you don't know until you make the mistake. And I just couldn't believe how we were all flailing. Oh, nobody talks about money.
Yeah.
You don't know how to read a royalty statement. So I had certainly from publishing my first book, the seeds in mind to write before and after the book deal.
Hmm.
But I got some pushback when I started really kind of pitching it because my publishing team was like, but you're going to get so much blowback. You can't write about success critically.
Mm.
And I said, but we have to because nobody feels like success. I mean, it's rare. Success, we think it looks like one thing, it has
Yes.
one number, it means one thing, but in fact, attaching feelings or equivocations of success toward especially a financial number or a number of
Right.
sales or anything you can't control. So even like
Hmm.
hitting the bestseller list, you can't control that. None of us writers know what that feels like until it
Hmm.
happens, and it's extremely dark and brutal, you know. And I
Yeah.
mean, I've been very lucky, but I've never hit the New York Times bestseller list or anything like that. But you know, and I had to say to my, it was very telling because
Hmm.
my agent and other publishers I was talking to, they were like, I don't think writers need this book. They know this stuff. And I thought, oh my God, you guys actually don't know.
Don't.
You have no clue. And they were very surprised. My agent had actually wanted me to, and I'm sharing this because we laugh about it at panels. We go on panels together a lot. She said, you should probably self-publish this, you
Mm.
know, because I think there is going to be blowback. And now she's like, this is the best thing you've ever done for your career. I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. You know, you had some great foresight. But I'm always reminding her that's all might be true, but also you overestimated how much we know when in fact
Right.
we know nothing. It's like being
Hmm.
an apprentice to a shipbuilder, but you're not an apprentice. You have to go build the ship. What wood are you using? Nobody tells us anything. So, and it was amazing because, you know, before and after the book deal is not a memoir, right? Of like a white woman's path to publication. There's over 200 contributions
Hmm.
of other people from all over the literary stratosphere. And what was incredible is, with one exception, everyone I reached out to, Anthony Doerr, Roxane Gay, huge successes to smaller indie micro presses, academic presses, everybody I talked to, it's like falling all over themselves to talk about what had been hard about their
Yes.
success or what continued to, they really wanted to talk about it. I think they just wanted to talk about it under someone else's umbrella, you know? So I was like, oh,
Hmm.
that's fine. Pick one for the team. Just really excited that I'm just proud of myself that I stuck to my guns and really advocated for that this book needed to be out in the world and that people are still finding their way to it is really meaningful to me, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how needed this is, and also, your skill and your generosity in sharing this and calling and putting all of this together because we do need this. And I meet so many people who want to write a book, have never taken a writing class sometimes,
Yeah,
know nothing about it, not just the writing process, but the publication process. And suddenly it's like, you know, I want to do this thing. I want to learn how to swim. So I'm going to jump in the middle of the ocean with
sure.
nothing else around and then
Yeah,
see what happens. And that's a really unhealthy way to go about it. I mean, we need to have these systematic ways of understanding what does this landscape look like? And you offer that to us. And I love how you really focus on the different kinds of success because, I recently interviewed Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who is amazing. Everyone should get her book. She's incredible. And she did make the New York Times bestseller list. And one of the questions I asked is, how are you taking care of yourself while you're doing
yeah,
this? And her answer was, I'm not,
yeah, yeah,
because the level of work that was required to get there and do all of these things was immense. And this wasn't her first book. I mean, she had
yeah.
had other books out. So
it would be interesting to have a conversation with her a year or two from now to say, looking back, how did you feel about the level of effort you put forth, the energy? I mean, in terms of numbers, she's got it all.
Right.
But I always look at, what does it do inside you and how does it affect you? Because that is what you take with you.
100%. And you don't, again, you don't know because most agents are not going to protect you from this because the more opportunities you're accepting, the more money that brings them generally. And even the best agents who have really good intentions,
Mm-hmm.
you get offered a podcast or a web series or something, they're going to want you to do it. But it takes a long time in the business to understand. The more I say yes to, the more I'm saying no to my own writing
Yes.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I feel that I started to learn around book two. Book one, and I wouldn't have done this differently. I said yes to everything, right? Everything. A
Mm-hmm.
podcast in Chattahoochee, Louisiana with one listener. Yes. Blog post
Mm-hmm.
for ABC. Absolutely. You want me to go to North Dakota? Sure. Right. I said, yeah, because what do I know? You don't know what's going
Right.
to move the needle. Book two, I kind of repeated that process and ended
Mm-hmm.
up physically broken. And so with book three, which is, on purpose, when I started working with independent presses and kind of put
Mm-hmm.
pause on the big five experience, which is another way of saying I lived with much less money for a while. The less money you're getting for a book advance, I will say, the more peace you have, right?
Yeah.
They're not, my Tin House book, my advance was so small. They're not going to ask me, oh, could you start a podcast? Could you
Mm-hmm.
start, an interview series? Can you start a newsletter? They're just sort of like, hey, could you send an email blast to get people to pre-order, right? The asks are not very large, but at the
Mm-hmm.
higher level, certainly the one at the doctor's playing at, can you write the scripts for this book to
Yes.
be optioned on spec, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Can you please you already have a podcast, start a spin-off. Could you write a pilot? Oh, could you do a proposal for the next book? Because we need to write it right away. And
Yes.
also we need you to be on a speaking series that's separate from your, and sometimes they're throwing big money at you. So it takes a very special person to say no, but also people, you have to, I actually kind of color block day parts in my week to make sure that they're just non-negotiable times that I can't schedule anything. And that helps me understand how many yeses I have left in a season, right? So like this summer, I'm out of yeses. I have no more yeses. They've all been used. It's all no's until probably November. And that took some maturity. And it also took, well, some savings, right? Again, back to the socioeconomics, I saved money from my first two good book advances to weather me through the three soulfully nourishing but financially empty book advances, from the independent presses. And then amazing thing, and partly this is age too, right? Like I'm 45, I wasn't evolved in my 20s, but now I'm like, it's going to take a massive sum of money for me to sacrifice my peace and
Yeah.
the joy that you get from saying yes to the right things and the right
Mm-hmm.
people and protecting yourself from waste of time, from toxic
Yes.
energy. I literally have no space for that anymore and have gotten quite good at sussing that out. I can kind of tell whether it's a client, a podcast invitation, a
Mm-hmm.
festival, you can tell from having received these invitations for so long and going on some journeys that were disastrous, like dating, right? You just get that
Yeah.
little spidey sense that's like, this is going to be a hot mess. Okay, so say no.
Mm-hmm.
You do learn,
Yeah.
I think, what moves the needle. And I have to say, the one true thing that moves the needle is just to continue writing, to keep
Yeah.
on going. Your first book underperformed, write a second book. Write a third book, write a fourth book. Maybe it's your fourth book that brings people to your first book.
Right.
Because I know lots of people that had crazy breakout successes with their debuts, haven't even followed it up with any. They just sort
Mm-hmm.
of or they did, and it underperformed, and that completely broke them because
Yes.
nobody told them your first book doesn't necessarily beget the same result as the second.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's like an athlete, and they're human beings. You can't
Right.
guarantee that they're going to go out and perform the same every single day. It just doesn't work like that. And success doesn't work like that either. So I think, yeah, the true success is, first of all, being able to financially support yourself just enough that you
Yes.
can make time to write, and then writing more or less what you want and being given the opportunities to publish.
Mm-hmm.
But that's success. After that, your book moves a lot of units. It doesn't, it's panned, whatever that, you can't control that. It really doesn't have to do with you.
Yeah, there's so much that you can't control. And I think people build all of these stories up inside themselves around, this is what it means, or that's what it means. And then it becomes very personal. And you recently had a Substack article about writing in the dark and keeping yourself in the dark, which I loved. I thought that was really good. And it was interesting because you used to work in trends, and you have this uncanny ability to identify trends. And I know lots of authors, especially in the narrative nonfiction and the memoir space, who are very focused on their author platforms and trying to follow the trends or think about the numbers, which makes them miserable. And then they're like, I hate doing this, which of course you do. How do you balance that? I mean, you talk about it in that post, which I'm going to share in the show notes, but could you say a little bit more about the internal compass?
Yeah, so that post was it was in respect to a comment I'd made to someone's note that was like, oh my God, the metrics, like just write whatever you want. And she was talking about specifically Substack, but basically it was saying, just write whatever the hell you want and you'll find your way. And I responded, but then I wrote something about writing from the delicious dark, and people seemed to like it. So I thought, oh, I'll write a whole post about it. And I started realizing that I really do stay in, even though I've become something of like a publishing expert, and people pay me to talk about publishing, which is, I enjoy it very much. I think that I'm good at it. I think that that's an earned title, but I'm an art witch first, and so it's sort of funny because in my coaching, sometimes people want like behind the scene, insider information on getting analytics and SEO and all of this stuff. And I'm always like, listen, what makes your heart sing? What makes you get out of bed in the morning? Like, let's start with that. And then there are, to me, especially coming from a branding background, I will say the things that I don't do, for me, the delicious darkness is, don't look at my analytics, my metrics. I'm talking about Substack specifically, but also my royalty statements. I don't know what region I sell in better than others. I don't know where people are finding my Substack from. I don't know who unsubscribes. I don't look at that stuff. Substack is just built in a way that there's some numbers you can't escape when you log in, right? You see your paid subscriber count, you see so that I can't escape, or at least I don't know how to escape it. And then with my writing, like my books, I don't even know how to read my royalty statement. But what I do know, coming from branding background, is that whether we're talking about a blog, a newsletter, a Substack, podcast, anything, you do need to come out the gate. If you're going to take this seriously and you want to be discovered, you do need to have some brand assets, what we call brand assets. So in our writing world, that would mean some great title, a catchy title that communicates what the umbrella that you're going to be writing under. So not everything has to do with, like, for instance, before and after the book deal, right? That's the name of my book, but I named my Substack after that. I do not write exclusively about publishing and getting book deals. I write about mental health. Sometimes I'll write about my cat, right? But I'm allowed to do that because I developed categories and segments. I guess they're called segments, sections. MailChimp calls them something, Substack. But basically you want categories, and you need to think this out before you start. What categories can I put under the umbrella that I've given a title to make sure that I'm not, let's say that your big thing is elder care. If you're only writing about, there's lots of ways to write about elder care, but birth trauma, you're like, that's all I'm writing about. Well, that doesn't leave you any room to write about something joyful, easy, superficial. And if you're going to, especially Substack, which does require kind of constant posting, you're going to burn the hell out if you've picked a
Yes.
difficult, traumatic subject. So make sure that your title has a little room for all the different shades of emotions, not just joy, not just pain. It's nice to have a tagline. I have a tagline that a little bit more what you're going to be doing. You need the little categories, and then you should have a logo. If you want to get, you know, the A++ and 2 stars, you should come to the table with an idea of what your brand colors are, just to make sure that everything looks coherent and discoverable. I don't do that on Instagram. My Instagram's a mess. I don't care about that at all. But my Substack, I do care about, mostly because the brand tools, they make it really accessible. So just like you know, in branding, I was hired as a namer and a copywriter, so I would name the brand, but we would always work in tandem with the brand managers, right? So they would be showing us the sketches for the new companies or logo, the taglines, and then we would come in with our naming recommendations. And we certainly did not just throw up a website and launch product. And what I tell people, again, more and more people were getting pushed to start newsletters. And I see these people every day, just like, I've started a Substack, and I think, God almighty, it's like I'm running for president. It takes a lot more work. I was on MailChimp for 2 or 3 years before I migrated. I had 3,000 followers. So not insane numbers, but a nice place to start. Migrated with my P, and I already had 3 years of seeing what worked, what felt good to me, what didn't, before I launched on Substack, which is about 2 years ago. So Substack to me is not the place to launch with nothing, with 0 followers. I really like to encourage people to either start out on a somewhat lower profile newsletter, tiny letter, MailChimp, whatever, Beehive, there's lots of them. Try things out, see how it goes. And then hopefully bring people with you to Substack, rebrand a little bit. So when you launch on Substack, you already have people who can recommend you. But if you don't want to do that, you can also use Facebook and Instagram. You know, pick your messaging, your storytelling lane. Try it out. If you're comfortable with video, you can do the IG, Reel, TikTok, whatever the hell it is. So, for example, well, okay, so the other day I was working with someone who's in the wine industry, and she pointed me to this influencer who's basically does like anti-snob wine, right? It's wine for people who are in lower to lower middle class. And she does all these pairings with like a certain kind of white and Cheetos, right? Or like microwave popcorn. And it's, you know, all the bottles are under 20. Some are closer to 10, 11, 12. And so I was watching her stuff and I thought, wow, I mean, now, you know, she's like a big influencer and speaker, and I can't remember her handle, otherwise I would share it. But I thought, I bet that this person started off on, you know, Instagram, Facebook, just with that angle or something approaching. They tried it out, and people must have been like, oh, I love this. This is the gap in the market. And then, right, she built it up and professionalized it. And I don't know, I think we're unfortunately living in an era where people just are forgetting how much time it takes to become professional. You know, I do these consulting calls with people who are like, well, I'm working on my first novel, so I need to start a newsletter. Like, well, why do you need to start? You know, have you published any nonfiction elsewhere about your book's topic? And they'll say, no, I just need to start with a newsletter. No, you don't. I can't even imagine. I must have had 100 published articles. Again, it's fine to have a blog, but if you think you're going to start earning money on Substack and you've never published nonfiction anywhere, not even in a local paper, I mean, that's like me saying I'm going to go get a spot at the Olympics as I have no idea, swimmer.
Yeah.
I like to swim. No one has ever told me that I deserve to earn money. You know, it's just a funny, I think because it's so accessible, and especially Substack, unlike MailChimp, is free, right? Until you start earning money, they take a commission. It's free. So it seems like Instagram. Anyone can start an Instagram. Anyone can start a Substack. That doesn't mean that you are ready,
Yes.
or that you're going to have success. Same thing with writing. I don't work with this type of person anymore, but certainly when I started opening up to consults many years ago, I wasn't sure who my ideal client was. And so the people who usually men who are like, well, I'm ready to have a book, right? And I just finished my novel last week, and now I need a book deal by the end of the summer, and that's why I'm hiring you. I'd be like, great, what have you been reading in the last 2 years? Tell me what you like to read. Oh, I don't read. Okay, what summer writing conferences do you go to? Do you go to AWP? What's your favorite independent bookstore? No, I told you I don't read. I don't buy books. Oh, I don't go to conferences. I've written like this amazing book and it needs to be published, right? This is not, I do draw parallels pretty often to athletics. I think in America, we have a real respect for athletes and how hard they work and train to get to whatever level they're at, right? It could be state championships for high school basketball. It could be national level figures, whatever the hell it is. I think we really understand. We have the minor leagues, the major league, the varsity, the JV. So you're kind of born, even if you're just going through the public school system, you're born understanding, or not born, but right, you get it pretty quickly, the hierarchy of determination, dedication, hard work. Whereas I don't know what the hell is going on with our culture where you go into a bookshop and you're like, cool, I can do this.
Yes.
And maybe you can, but you can't do it in 6 months.
No.
And you have to do all the things that the athletes are they're doing, right? They are getting up at 4, they are working out, they are not drinking, they are making major sacrifices, and they are doing it understanding that this could take 10 years, And I don't know why we really do encourage this rush in this society. I mean, partly the fault is the gatekeepers who are like, I liked your query, but come back to us when you have, some absurd number, 100,000 followers and a podcast. Come back when you have a platform. Well, I'm old enough that my platform came from publishing books. Call me old-fashioned, but that seems the way to go about it, right? Unless you're coming to publishing as an expert in something already, like psychotherapy, animal rescue, whatever the hell.
Yes.
That's different. You're bringing your platform there, but especially for those of us who write fiction, your writing is your platform. So you can't come out the gate with a platform until you start to publish, and especially publish books. It's just so cart before the horse. It's really absurd.
Absolutely. But I also meet people who are like, I've been reading my whole life. I read avidly. I've been in book clubs. I can do this and it's going to be nothing. So easy. And it is not an easy transition. And the metaphor that I often use is dealing with cars. So we're in cars all the time. We're riding in cars. We learn to drive cars. We might feel like we're great at that. Being a writer is like being a master mechanic. You need to know how to replace the intake manifold and rebuild the carburetor and all of these other things. And
this
if
is
you
making my
can't
cortisol rise, because I'm definitely someone that drives a car around. If something happens I'm screwed. I know nothing about what's going on. Same thing with my house. I thank God I have a husband who knows stuff, right? But like something goes wrong with the plumbing. I'm living in sewage. I don't know what I do. Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah,
it's
it's the same thing. And when I've told people that, the shame that often comes with, getting feedback that is different from what you expected, or getting these rejections, or experiencing all these things, I'm like, of course you're going to. You haven't learned the skills that are needed and taken the time, because it does take time. And so, and I love everything you said about Substack, because Jane Friedman wrote this great post a little while ago. It was about, I'm going to get the title wrong, but this one was, Substack is the best and the worst thing for writers. And her main point was, don't try to have a paid Substack, especially if you've never created a newsletter and you don't know what you're doing. And I think that's something that you're also advocating for, is really, if you're going to have a Substack or any other kind of newsletter, you need to understand how to write one. And this is one thing you talked about in terms of the delicious dark is there's all these things number wise to not pay attention to, but you need to understand your readers, what
Yeah.
they want, what they need. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into this. And I've actually seen a lot of writers who jump on the Substack bandwagon, and then they're feeling really bad about their experience because they see a few people who have just amazing success. You happen to be one of those people.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, why isn't it happening for me?
Not everyone can be on Substack, number one. It's so saturated already.
Yeah.
But especially if you're trying to make money from your writing, I think I really blame the MFA program for this. There are so many ways to make money as a writer. I have
Mm-hmm.
pretty much tried all of them, and none of them are taught. It's all just like, write a good short story, get it published for what? $300, hooray.
Yeah.
But there's speech writing, there's
Mm-hmm.
copywriting, there's branding, there's translation, which there's a real need for. There's technical writing,
Yes.
copy editing, proofreading, naming, which is something that I've done, which was extremely lucrative and fun as
Mm-hmm.
hell.
Yeah.
Press releases. I used to make lots of money. I mean, lots of money, not like hedge funder money, but money, to allow myself to write on the side with
Mm-hmm.
no problem and no worries and pay my rent. And I was writing and learning these technical skills that have served me so well, because once you get a book accepted, what happens all the time is you're told you have 2 months to do an edit.
Mm-hmm.
And then your editor's like 4 weeks late with the edits, but they don't give you any more time. You have to
Right.
or they say, oh my gosh, we just got this amazing opportunity, but you have to choose 20,000 or whatever the hell it is. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
something very, very, very quickly by the end of the afternoon. And, that's never been a problem for me because I developed these skills outside of writing like a nice short story, working under
Yeah.
deadline, working with stressed out people, and
Mm-hmm.
learning to time manage. And those skills are more important. And I mean, I sometimes tell people, especially young people, like, go work as a bartender or a waitress,
Yes.
and listen to the dialogue, pay
Right.
attention to the way that people are treating you, even when you're being treated very badly. What's their body language like? What's
Mm-hmm.
your body language like in that moment? The socioeconomic divide is always very
Yes.
interesting in restaurant work too. But this is the elitist thing about writing, is we have this ridiculous, unattainable image that in our minds as young people, that writing means going to an MFA program
Mm-hmm.
somehow, being able to live in a place you don't have a support network, and just write and then come out and get a book deal.
Yeah.
Who's doing, I mean, how? How? And we never see the big New York Times profiles about the adjunct professors who are working at 3 different
Mm-hmm.
universities, have
Right.
bags of clothing and deodorant in their car, have no office, are working out of their car, and who are writing, award-winning indie press books on the side. We don't hear about those people. We hear about the $1 million book deals and the movie deal that
Exactly.
followed. And this is what they do with their Sundays in New York. And I don't give a shit. I mean, it's great. I hope that those people are going on to support other writers. We do need those people. They allow the rest of us to get book advances, but these are not the models that we need to be looking up to here. We need to be looking up to the ones that are getting up to 4 a.m. to write before they teach, or write before
Yes.
they have to care for their kids or their sick parents, and you know or the ones who are in completely different industries,
Mm-hmm.
science, finance, law, whatever, who are doing this on the side. Like, that's so inspiring.
Yeah. No, I think that there is this huge myth that you can just quit your job, be a writer, be financially successful. And yes, I work within the industry. I make my money by working with other people and editing their work and teaching classes and doing all of these other things that's the primary way that I make my money. And then I also publish and I get some money, but I actually am happy with that
Yeah.
because then it gives me the freedom to write what I want, to follow my joy, to really serve the people that I want to serve with my writing. and not feel that same financial pressure that
100%.
and I
Yeah.
think that's reasonable for most people and healthy.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to come off as a gatekeeper. If you feel ready to have your book out in the world, that's exciting. That's really exciting. And you can do that on the fast track by either self-publishing or finding a hybrid publisher. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that, especially these days. My gosh, when you really sit down to think about the economics of it, it's truly unfair. I've been trying to talk to my agent about like the royalties. It's insane how little we get from our own books, especially if you're lucky enough to earn out. So there's nothing wrong with self-publishing and hybrid. I've done it, and it was so empowering and worthwhile. And you can use social media to start getting your story out there right away. So again, you feel ready to have a book out in the world. There are so many exciting, empowering, and cost-effective ways to do that. But not everyone gets a traditional book deal just because they are ready for one. It is a meritocracy, I think. And by meritocracy, I don't mean like, oh, you went to a fancy school and you made the right connections. I mean, you put the time in, not just on the computer, but you've gone to bad reading series, and sat in a hot room with someone spilling beer on your foot. You've gone to the writers' conferences and sat there while 12 people ripped your work to shreds.
Yep.
You've had to share a dorm. This happened to me. Someone who hated you. You buy books from actual independent bookstores. That's putting the work in. That's the initiation period. You have a subscription. One of 50 people who have a subscription to a dying literary magazine. You've volunteered for a festival in your town. You write for your town newspaper. You have to put in that citizenship piece, which I just don't think is emphasized or respected or taught enough.
I do think that it reminds me of medical school and doctors and the whole idea of residency, and there's lots of thoughts around residency and people working 24 and 48 and 72 hours at a time. And I personally don't want a doctor to see me in their 71st hour ever, in their residency. And yet doctors who've gone through that gauntlet feel like, no, you need to go through that gauntlet.
Yeah.
And yet there is some aspect of a gauntlet that we do need to go through in terms of learning how to write well, learning how to market our books, whatever that's going to be, whether it's self-publishing or you're going the traditional path. So there's lots of different ways we can do that. I have one quick question I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to get to this lightning round because we could be here forever. You have so many insights and so many wonderful things to share, and I am absolutely just in awe of all that you do. But one of the things I wanted to ask about is you recently went to an ENT. You had this lifelong insomnia, and you had this certain story about who you were as a sleeper, as a human, this identity that was built upon what you had been told. And then suddenly you found out something different. And now you are correcting that. I resonate with that because I'm a person who has also struggled with health issues and was told one thing about my experience for a very long time, and then suddenly found out that it was something completely different. So how has this experience changed the way you're thinking about your writing, about your stories, and particularly about your memoir, which is about your insomnia?
I know I'm gonna have to do a sequel to the memoir. Well, thank you for this question. So to summarize really quick, I've had debilitating chronic insomnia since I was, 8 years old, unfortunately, and have seen all the doctors, the Western doctors, the woo-woo, la la la. When I was 8, my parents split up. My brother was deeply, deeply sick, was having these insane seizures every day. He ended up spending years in a children's hospital. It's just a very dark time of my life, very challenging. I was left alone a lot. And that's my memoir, the childhood portion. The memoir is The Year of the Horses. The childhood portion there's a lot during that 8-9-year-old period. I developed disordered eating as a way to find control. The insomnia thing, it's tough because I feel good today, but most of the time I'm so overtired that proactively for my health is hard. Making the calls, it's hard to reach doctors. They give you appointments I just made an appointment, and the first one was in January 30th, 2025.
Oh
This
my
stuff is
gosh.
overwhelming. So basically, every 2 or 3 years, I'm like, okay, getting together the energy, and I'm going to kind of
Mm-hmm.
take my health by storm. So the last time I had that burst of energy was about a year ago, when I finally went to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, which I hadn't done because no one had recommended it, which is rather bonkers. And that doctor had me go through a series of palliative
Mm-hmm.
exercises. He was kind of watching how I spoke and swallowed and breathed. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, by any chance, did you have braces very young? I said, oh, I did. I had got them when I was 8. And in
Mm-hmm.
my mind, I was like, 8. That's when my insomnia started. And then he says,
Mm-hmm.
and this definitely was a big moment, you know, you're trying not to like break down in the doctor's office. He said, well, you know, I've looked at your mouth. You having braces that early for that long stunted your jaw growth. Your tongue continued to
Mm-hmm.
grow. Your nasal passages didn't develop correctly
Mm-hmm.
because of the stunted jaw.
Yeah.
And you have not been able to breathe correctly for about 30 years. And you're a candidate for some major surgeries. So I underwent the surgery. So your question's a little challenging for me to answer. I underwent
Mm-hmm.
these surgeries in April, and the reason it's challenging is because only 50% worked. My
Mm-hmm.
left nostril was a success. Everything was internal, but inside they broke everything down and rebuilt it. But on the
Mm-hmm.
right side, something went wrong. The cartilage has slipped and collapsed, and I can't get
Mm-hmm.
any air through this nostril. So
Mm.
right now, I'm not quite at a, I have to go back for a even more aggressive surgery where they'll
Mm-hmm.
actually open the outside of my nose. So I don't have the best energy around this experience yet. I
Sure.
don't have the big takeaways. I was hoping to absolutely this summer be on the path to what everyone said. You know, you're going to be a new woman, you'll get your life back. It's feeling worse than before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, the way that it's changed my thinking about this narrative I had about myself in my head, where I've always been told by doctors, you're just high strung, you're neurotic, you need
Yeah.
yoga and meditation, which is a form of gaslighting, because I think doctors are
Yes.
always telling women that we're neurotic and high strung. All of that to say, I think I've become even more passionate about encouraging women,
Mm-hmm.
specifically people who identify as women, to really advocate for their health and just
Yes.
scream, yell, kick until they find someone to listen to them. I wrote a Substack about that experience, and I have never had
Yes.
such a flood of it made me cry quite a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
How many women wrote me who are in my age range who admitted they have horrible sleep, insomnia problems. I also
Yes.
have struggled with chronic canker sores my whole life, and to a
Mm-hmm.
debilitating place. Like sometimes I have to cancel podcasts. I can't
Mm-hmm.
talk. And that felt like a dirty secret. And the doctor told me, well, it's just you're not getting oxygened air because you
Right.
can't breathe through your nose. It's not hormonal, as I'd always been told. And
Mm-hmm.
all these other women were writing me about their chronic canker sores that they'd been too embarrassed to. I mean, I should have got a commission, the amount of people I think that went to see ear, nose, and throat doctors from
Right.
my post. So yeah, that's really what's changed for me is when I hear my women friends say, you know, maybe this is, I'm just feeling off, or I'm just like, let's
Mm-hmm.
let's think who you can see who will listen to you. This is
Yes.
more than you being stressed out.
I mean, women are so dismissed, and that was my experience for a long time. I had chronic health issues, and one issue I don't talk about a whole lot is that when I was really young, I had this bad car. I was in a bad car accident
Mm.
and didn't have seatbelt on, and ended up literally hitting a telephone pole with my head, with the side of my face,
Oh,
like.
God.
And I was lucky, but for a wide variety of reasons, they weren't thinking about head trauma at that time.
Yeah.
And so they did a CT of my abdomen, said, okay, you're fine, just go back to school. And I had all of this anxiety, and I had a lot of insomnia and a lot of different things going on. And to complicate matters, there was a lot of stress and chaos and violence in my childhood. So I ended up with this diagnosis in my early 20s, and what ended up being like the model patient at the bipolar clinic.
Of
Well,
course.
why was I the model patient? Because I didn't have it.
Yeah.
But I had been dismissed for all of this period of time. People would say, well, maybe you need to take a vacation or just these different things
Yeah.
around how I needed to be calmer. When I finally ended up
Yeah.
getting this, special EEG of my brain, that injury had gone into the white matter of my brain. That's how severe
Oh,
it
so
was.
this is really tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. It is.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
actually
but it's
healed.
just, but
But
it's like when you think of all the people, the women that this
oh
has
my gosh.
happened to in one iteration or another. And of course,
Yes.
we're both white people. So when you think of the people of, it just it makes me so angry. I mean, I wrote a lot about the medical gaslighting in my
Mm-hmm.
memoir because I'd had a second term miscarriage. And when they wheeled me in the gurney, I was far enough along. I had to have a DNC.
Mm,
And this anesthesiologist comes up. He came over and he had my chart, and he must have had someone else's chart. He cited a weight that was not, it was about 40
mm-hmm.
pounds heavier than I am. He said, "This is your second miscarriage. It was my first." He had everything
Mm,
wrong. And I started to cry,
yeah.
not hard, but a little, because I just didn't feel safe with this person who was
Sure.
about to put me under. And of course, I was sad. And he grabs a tissue and he goes, "Oh, you got a cold?" And I said, "What? No, I'm sad." And he actually punched me on the shoulder. I was in the gurney, punched me in the shoulder, and he goes, "Oh, you'll just make another one." And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I the rage, of course, now this man like put me under 3 seconds late, but the
Right.
rage in me was, I'm surprised I didn't shove my finger in that man's eye. I
Mm-hmm.
clearly he had my wrong chart because I was advanced. I was over 40 years old. You can't just go make another one, right? It
Right.
doesn't work that way. And I remember right before he put me under, I was like, "Strongly worded letter is coming your way, sir." I wrote a complaint, to the entire hospital. What else can we? I'm a writer. It feels like a duty, but just thought like, who is this asshole rolling around
Right.
telling women who have just, you don't know why I miscarried. You don't know how much I was looking forward to this. Or what the hell do you know about anything? Shut up. Just give me a Kleenex and shut your mouth.
Right.
Like, oh God. And you're a medical, it's hard to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. It takes so many years and so much money. And so many of them have no bedside manner whatsoever. I just don't,
No.
I don't, it's actually beyond me. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to believe that it's that hard. Us
No.
writers, like you take one semester of writing and you learn how to speak to people kindly about their work. Or
Mm-hmm.
even in half an hour, you learn like start with compliments, right? We learn pretty quick as artists to be sensitive and intuitive. And it's not all doctors, hashtag not all
Yeah.
doctors, but hashtag most doctors.
There are a lot of them, and I have
And
met
the
them in
women
my
too.
lives.
Yeah. And I really do start to think that there's something in the people that are drawn toward medicine that they might be missing, actually, an essential compassion component that is maybe necessary
Mm-hmm.
so that they're not always taking their job home with them.
Yeah.
And that I can understand, that I can like get on board with, but it doesn't feel good when you're on the other side.
No.
And that's fine. And if that is cerebrally,
Mm-hmm.
neurologically the case, well, then they need to have a sidekick with them
Right.
or a puppy. Anyway, yeah, we could clearly talk for the rest of 2024.
We could. I think this was the big takeaway for me. And I certainly had lots of pain around that, was that when I finally got that diagnosis, it was vindicating because
Mm,
what I learned is I need to trust my own experience.
yeah,
I deserve to be listened to, and I need to be able to weed out the people who are not going to listen and dismiss
yeah,
them because they're not worth my time. But I think that also serves us well in writing because we can begin to, I think this process can be so difficult that, and especially there's so many gatekeepers that we begin to dismiss ourselves and think, well, it doesn't matter. And what I have to say isn't true. And you have to learn how
it
to
is true.
build that internal compass.
And
And
again, like what we've been talking about
yeah,
before, just have the faith that if everyone says no to you in the traditional publishing sphere, you can find tons of ways to say yes to yourself, and it might be
Yes.
even more satisfactory outcome than you could have imagined with a traditional publisher. I worked with a woman not that long ago who, oh my God, she was like, oh, sort of embarrassed. I self-published, I sold 5,000 copies during 2020. And I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
During the pandemic, locks in at home, you sold 5,000 copies of your memoir, self-published. She's like, "Ah, yeah." I'm like, no. Bess, her name's Bess.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Best, to give her book a shout out and her Substack. And I said, Billy, you might not be aware that 5,000 is actually the sales goal right now
Mm-hmm.
for traditionally published books. It's
Yeah.
fallen so low because books are not selling as well as
Right.
people think they're selling. And it's a question I ask my publishers every time I publish: what would make you breathe easier in terms of
Mm-hmm.
numbers? Once I hit this number, you'll start to breathe easier. What's that number? When I started publishing, it was 30,000. And the last time I published, it was 5,000. And
Yeah.
when I told her that, it blew her mind. She was like, wait, I'm a success? I was like, you're a huge success.
Yes.
Keep self-publishing, and I think it's great. I think it's great. My goal is always trying to respect people's egos,
Mm-hmm.
understand the kind of ego things that they want, but then help open them up to these other paths and other channels, and also patience. But yeah, because the time of you need an agent, you need a publisher. These times are behind us. I am starting to think if I have another craft book, I might self-publish it, because
Mm-hmm.
I do look at before and after the book deal, which I have completely alone. I didn't even have an editor when that book came out. My
Mm-hmm.
editor had left before the book published. Catapult has gone through a lot of changes. All of the efforts to publicize that book post-publication, let's give them a year into public.
Mm-hmm.
Been me. And when I see that I'm getting like all told 3% of whatever, that doesn't feel great,
Yeah.
So I might go back to self-publishing, especially in the craft space. I don't love the idea of mailing things out of my garage, but hell, I think I think you can do both. I mean, look at Colleen Hoover. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen, what a badass, right? She tries forever, ever and ever to get her stuff published. No one wants it. Starts to self-publish. She's killing it.
Mm-hmm.
So the publisher's crawling back, like, and now she takes it or leave it. So she'll do one or two books with the publisher, and then she's like, I don't want to go through all that rigmarole. I'm going to publish. She self-publishes, she self-publishes again, and she goes, she uses the publishers like mistresses, sort of. Or
Right.
like sugar daddies.
Mm-hmm.
No, she's the sugar mom. It's awesome. I think it's great. People love to dump on her, and I'm like, why? Why don't you take a note? She's
Yeah.
doing pretty good. She's
Uh,
doing exactly what she wants to do on her own terms, literally. Is her writing my cup of tea? Who cares? I can admire her as a businesswoman.
Absolutely. I
Pretty
mean,
cool.
so another guest on the podcast, Ingrid Clayton, she self-published her memoir and has sold, I don't know the exact number now, but I think the last time we spoke, it was well over 11,000 copies.
Yeah, I mean,
And
and
she did
again,
it on
that's
her own.
above the national average
Yes,
for traditionally published memoirs that had big advances. It,
exactly.
and she's going to be keeping close to 100% of those
Mm-hmm.
profits. Probably doesn't have an agent taking the 15%. And again, listen, for the moment, I am pro publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I love my agent. I've really been lucky with my publishers, and I see the value that they put in, and I want them. But
Yeah.
absolutely, I think there will come a time where I think this particular title, for whatever given reason, I want to go at my own. And I also
Yeah.
do think I'm really trying to advocate. I'm a council member of the Authors Guild,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really going to start, in terms of what we hit the pavement for, trying to renegotiate, at the very least, ebook royalties,
Yes.
and then the paperback and hardcover, because it's just, if the publishers are going to continue to ask more and more unpaid labor of us that they used to provide,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, right? It's like if hotels started asking us to bring our own towels and sheets and pay for AC, there'd be an uproar.
Right.
or they'd have to drop the price. So why are our royalty statements staying the same, but we're having to do 75% of the marketing, promotion, PR, and event
Yes.
management that used to be provided for us? That's fine. I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the skills, but you have to pay me more. My royalties have to be way higher. What is it,
Absolutely.
7%, 10% on,
No.
let's get to 60, 70. And you know,
Right. If
it's
you're having to do all of that work.
bonkers,
Absolutely.
bonkers, bonkers. And we've been taking it for so long. And I really do think that change is coming. I mean, Stephen King just renegotiated his royalty percentages. Now he's Stephen
Mm-hmm.
King, right? So he's sort of like the Taylor Swift out there.
Right.
He can do what he wants, but others will follow.
I love that.
You
Well,
know,
you
it's
give a
hard.
lot of people writing advice. I'm curious about what the best piece of writing advice is that you've received that you hold on to.
Oh my gosh. I'm now recalling that you had sent this question to me. I'm going to tweak your question a little bit
Go
and
for it.
answer with the advice
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten was to make friends, because I was just so focused on getting the work done. You know,
Yes.
I sort of did come in, my first book publishing experience was very much like I did everything myself,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not true. That doesn't play out to be true, right? You do generally in the traditional realm have an entire team. And then when my first book came out, I didn't really have a lot of writing friends. I
Mm-hmm.
was starting to make them because I'd realized how badly I needed them. And that's one of the great things about MFA programs. But when you come
Yes.
completely from outside of the industry, I had to learn how to do it myself. And one of the very best things I ever did for my career was there was a period of my life where I was living in Massachusetts in the Berkshires, but I was headhunted for naming
Mm-hmm.
and invited to work at a branding agency. And I negotiated, I think, 3 days a week in-house, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that was long enough that I had to find a place to live, right? So I had
Mm-hmm.
to rent, had roommates, but it's Brooklyn, it was expensive. So in order to justify the amount of money I was paying every month on rent, I was like, okay, Courtney, this will be your mini MFA. For however long this job lasts, every single night you're in New York City, every single night you will go to one literary event. It could be a book
Nice.
launch, it could be a reading series, whatever. And then I doubled down and I was like, and you will introduce yourself by actually shaking hands
Mm-hmm.
pre-COVID. We still did that then, to one person at every single event. And I was like, okay, let's go. I can do this. And I did that. And when I tell you it maybe took 10 days, it was not that, it didn't take very long before I realized, okay, these are all the same people at all these
Mm-hmm.
events. They all know each other. And they thought I was some MFA student from like out, on the West Coast. And they started saying, also everyone that came, I mean, I'm still dear, dear, dear friends. I have a text group with almost all those people that I met
Nice.
then. And they were all editors of electric literature, the chief editor of Bomb Mag, all these
Mm-hmm.
places that I had been trying as a faceless person to get into. And something else I did, and this is another argument for having savings, I would introduce myself, shake my hand to
Mm-hmm.
one person every night. And then something else I did is once in a while, I'd say, hey, can I get you a beer? Because again, I
Mm-hmm.
was working in branding. I had some disposable income. Buy people a beer. The next thing you know, they're like, hey, we have this upcoming thing. Do you have any writing on the topic of parakeets? I don't know.
Yeah.
And by the end of the month, just 1 month of doing this, I had like 15 bylines. I'd been invited to perform at reading series myself. And it helps that I'm an outgoing, gregarious person, but still, all told, it probably cost me like $103 in beer and tipping the bartender and having some late nights and a lot of fun. And I did buy the books. I tried to buy
Mm-hmm.
the books of the people I liked at the reading series. And that was it. After a month, I was like in. I
Yeah.
basically knew all the movers and shakers. Lisa Lucas was there, like Helima Marcus, who's now the chief editor of Electric Literature, Benjamin Samuel, everybody who kind of runs the literati, Paul Martin, just so many people. And they're amazing, fun humans.
Mm.
And then they became friends. And then I quit my job. And I was like, now I'm good. Now I can just work from home, make the money by working for like whatever client. And then I have these new friends. you know?
Absolutely not. I'm always telling people be a good literary citizen, but more than anything, be a good human.
Yeah,
Because I think there are people who come into this with a very transactional mindset where they're like,
yeah,
I'm going to try to be friends with X or Y because you can give me something else.
sure.
But really, just be a good human.
Yeah, and that
Introduce
takes time. I
yourself.
think we can all forgive ourselves once in a while. You're a
Hmm.
little strategic. I mean, that's fine. I've
Yeah.
definitely have not always been. I've evolved. You know, when I came out the gate, I was very loud about the books I didn't like, and I'm not like that anymore. I'm a better literary citizen. So, you know, it's okay. Once in a while, we're going to be petty and conceited and jealous and gossip, and that's okay. I think you can leave a little space for that. But
Yeah.
yes, generally please make room for authenticity and joy and fun, a little fun in this whole thing. Because
Yes.
my goodness, if we can't have fun, then what the hell are we doing this for? It's not, you know, not necessarily a fun industry.
No, there's a lot of ups and downs, and
Yeah.
there can be some really down downs. That is for
Mm.
sure. So, if people want to buy your books or they want to subscribe to your Substack, what are the best ways for people to connect with you or even on social media?
I'm in all the places. It's either CB Mom or C Mom. My website, courtneymaum.com, is the best place. You can sign up for my newsletter straight from there. I have a bunch of online classes. You can learn about the writing workshop that I run. Yeah, I am kind of pro author website. That question comes up. So courtneymaum.com. And then my books, thankfully, knock on wood for the moment, they're all still in print. They're all available everywhere. Yeah, and I will say, as someone right now who has only backlist, I have a book in the works, but I don't have a
Hmm.
deal for it yet. Oh, it's the best thing you can do for an author is buy something from their backlist.
Yes.
So yeah, if you have it in you, I would throw me that backlist bone, please. Would mean a lot. Yeah. I mean, there's something for everyone in my backlist, truly.
I would say buy it and then review it.
Positively. If you have
Yes,
nothing nice to say, that's fine. You just keep it to yourself, please.
exactly. Only 5-star reviews. Give a positive
You
review
know,
because
that's okay.
those things matter.
I'm a gal who can handle a 4 star. That's
Hmm.
fine. If you're gonna take me to the 3 star, you know, fine. I can take that too, but just don't give me a review that's like I didn't like the title. That's not fair. Put
Right.
some elbow grease into it. Put some elbow grease. Yeah, I can handle it. I can take it, but certainly the 5 stars and 4 stars keep the bread on my family's table. Yeah.
Yeah. They do. And so be sure to do all of those things. And thank you so much, Courtney,
My pleasure.
for being on the podcast. Again, it's an absolute delight. And you've just brought so many different things. And like your books, this conversation has gone on many different
Yeah.
places and many different narrations. It's like the genres of the things we've talked about have been wonderful. So thank you.
I agree. This was really enjoyable and I really could talk to you all day. But thank you so much for having me, and for anyone listening or watching, you know, just keep going. Believe in yourself. It's going to happen in the way and the format and timeline that it's meant to happen. It might take a little longer than you're comfortable with, but just really keep going and make some friends or cultivate the ones you have, and it'll be okay.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I couldn't do this podcast without your support. If you love this episode, here are 3 simple ways that you can keep this show thriving. 1, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. 2, leave a 5-star review so others can find the show. 3, join my engaged dynamic community by signing up for the Writing and Resilience newsletter. As a thank you, you'll receive a free copy of Ditch Your Inner Critic: 5 Tools to Transform Self-Doubt into Self-Support. Until next time, remember that your story matters. As you write and connect with the truest, most authentic version, you become not just the writer, but the person you're meant to be. And that, my friends, is the real freedom writing can offer.